Hello everybody, welcome back to the Nibiru channel. It is February 17th, 2017. And after reviewing and watching the relief efforts at the Oroville Dam, I'm going to be very critical of the situation and the engineering repairs that are being conducted at this time. And I spent over 15 years as a heavy equipment operator working with some of the biggest and toughest machinery on some of the most dangerous situations. Spent several years working on gas well pads and construction deep in the mountains of West Virginia and Pennsylvania, working very closely under strict state and federal regulations. And after watching the repair efforts over the last several days, I was a little confused at the efforts of the construction company and engineering firm that is conducting the work. And I'm going to give you my take on what should have been done. And it could have been done in a timely fashion and could almost be completed before this rain started to move in to the California area. Now I'm going to show you, this is a video taken by a local news station, and I was watching some of the footage over the last couple of days, and this was just taken yesterday. This is an aerial photograph from a helicopter, and the roadway leading into where the breach occurred, if you watch my cursor along this spillway wall, is where the majority, this whole parking lot was flooded, but this is where the majority of all of this water came through and washed over the spillway wall. After watching the relief efforts using helicopters and other pieces of heavy equipment, which I'm very familiar with, I noticed that as of yesterday, they didn't seem to be making very much headway. Now, they did get the level of the lake to drop considerably. However, the rain systems that are moving in are going to overwhelm this lake once again. So I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. Using helicopters to fly in bags of rocks and then cementing them in together to seal up the corner, which was right over in this area, was just basically a complete waste of time. Even though they were using fast curing compounds of cement concrete, it's just not going to work, folks, because there is absolutely nothing that is going to prevent another breach of the spillway wall. Now, like I said, I've worked many years in the field of major earth-moving construction, building casinos, strip malls, large apartment buildings, condominiums, and working in southwestern Pennsylvania and through the panhandle of West Virginia. We have very high and deep mountains and valleys, which are very dangerous to work in. A lot more dangerous than the conditions that these gentlemen are working in now. Now, one of my first thoughts was, okay, you need to shore up the spillway wall. And one of my first thoughts were a fast and efficient solution would have been using very large retaining wall blocks. Now, there is a quarry not too far from this area. I saw it on Google Earth. They were actually doing some blasting over there, and they could have gotten a lot of material from this quarry. I'm sure they probably are. However, it doesn't take a lot of manpower to situate these large retaining wall blocks, and different styles of them linked together. They're very, very efficient. Now, me and a crew of 4 men built a retaining wall to save an office complex from a mountainside collapsing down onto the building. We completed 200 yards of excavation and retaining wall installation in 7 days. Now, you can put French drains and drainage and everything behind these walls. They work very, very well. The machinery that's being used, I'm just going to show you also some of the ways that these retaining walls work. And just showing this diagram, it shows you how quick, how fast these retaining walls can go up. The sizes of these blocks can be very, very large, basically made to order. And I'm sure out there in the California area, there are companies that do manufacture these, what they call ready rock retaining walls. They can be trucked in by flatbed tractor trailer very quickly. They can be offloaded immediately by simply using a front loader or very large excavator. Now, I've been thinking about this for days on end, and just taking another cross-section view of these retaining walls. When they're placed and built properly and staggered, as you see here, they create a lot of strength. Naturally, that would be shoring up that spillway wall. So over the last several days, all they've really done is put down some large boulders and try to fill them in with concrete. Now, from what I've seen, they're not vibrating the concrete in, which is going to create air pockets, and those air pockets will cause a very, very loose fitting for any of these rocks. Any stress will crack this concrete, and basically this will be a complete 100% waste of time and money. And the retaining wall repair that I'm proposing would have been a permanent structure. So, using just basic equipment, number one, they have a roadway there. Now, I've operated all this machinery. I'm very skilled at it. This machinery is very easy to use, very sophisticated machinery nowadays. But simply using a large D9 Cat bulldozer, they could have bulldozed access road directly down to and in front of the spillway wall. Then later on, simply laying a roadway of crushed limestone. Now, we use this type of crushed limestone for roadways going through these mountains in West Virginia and Pennsylvania on these gas well sites, and vehicles such as the large track loaders, excavators, front loaders, they can travel on this material very easily. As it's compressed into the ground, it basically forms a roadway. And the reason why I'm showing you this, going back to the video, they have a very good roadway here that they're using for staging. They could have bulldozed straight through here, laid down a roadway of this bedrock to move their machinery in and start performing the operation of building this retaining wall. And building this retaining wall is a lot faster than loading bags of large stones, then hitching them to a helicopter and then flying them in. That takes hours and hours and hours, tons of fuel, tons of man hours, and just basically a waste of time. And using some of the basic equipment that they already have there, they could have been bringing in, and I know they do have some of these large articulating dump trucks. Now, I've driven one of these. They're very, very easy to drive. And these are absolutely monsters for a dump truck. They hold 40,000 tons of material. They are very agile and they turn on a dime, and they can travel through many different types of road conditions. I've driven these up very steep, muddy, rutted embankments through the mountains of West Virginia, and using one of these vehicles to transport the large retaining block down to the building site, and an excavator, they would have had probably by today this job very close to being finished, at least shoring up the corner section of this retaining wall over here. And then you might ask, okay, well, how do you lift these blocks? Well, one of the main ways that we lift them is by a very large excavator. Now, this is a Cat 365, and again, these vehicles, they travel in the worst conditions. Simply using the bucket and a chain or straps, you're able to move and manipulate these large retaining wall blocks directly into place, and this operation takes 3 men. 1 man operating the excavator, 2 men situating the large retaining blocks into place. Now, they have access to all of this equipment. I saw all of this equipment on the site so far. Another way to transport this material is by these flatbed track loaders. Now, these little monsters, listen, these things go everywhere. I've driven these through 2 feet of mud and ruts all through the mountainous area of West Virginia. They have tilt beds on them. The large retaining block can be loaded onto them up on the roadway and brought directly down to the work site, lifted off by the excavator and placed into position. So I just don't understand the whole reasoning for flying helicopters into this area with bags of rocks and then positioning these rocks and then filling it in with cement. A complete waste of time. After watching my video yesterday, listening to one of the construction workers, whether he was an engineer or whoever he was, stating that they were only 8% of the way in completion. And as you can see, this is a very, very large area. They have a pretty good staging area here as far as the roadway goes. And again, these vehicles, especially the articulating Cat dump trucks, I mean, these vehicles, they travel in the absolute worst conditions. I mean, I used to love when I was assigned to running one of these vehicles because it's like a big toy. Very easy to drive, all-wheel traction, and it does a hell of a job. So I just don't understand. I think the whole entire operation being conducted here is going to be absolutely worthless. A waste of money, a waste of time. After watching this aerial footage from this news station, KCRA, NBC, I was pretty well overwhelmed by the waste of time trying to at least get some type of repair on this spillway and this wall. It's very easy to install large drainage pipes behind these walls with other forms of aggregate gravel. So even if there was a breach, the water would flow over into the aggregate and the gravel, slow the water down, and they could have actually, with a series of large pipes, plastic polypropylene pipes, divert this water anywhere they wanted it to go. So at this point in time, they've basically wasted many, many days with helicopters and boulders and concrete, and it's not going to do anything when the water starts flowing over that wall again. Now, as far as the end of the spillway that has the large hole in it, well, folks, that is a complete different story. There's so much damage and erosion in that area. This spillway and that whole section will have to be completely torn out and repaired at a later date. But looking at the engineering feat that they're trying to complete, it's just a waste of time. They're using the wrong materials, the wrong methods. And with all of the impending rain coming in, I think their efforts are worthless. That's my opinion. And again, I've worked as a heavy equipment operator for more than 15 years. I've been in some of the pretty deadly situations as far as working on these well pads deep in the mountains of West Virginia. I've driven these vehicles over mountainsides that would make anyone's skin crawl. In this situation and this work site doesn't look too bad. They have an access road, they have a staging area, and they had the machinery. I mean, they would have had to bring in some other pieces of machinery, but just looking at the equipment that they have there on site, I think it's a worthless cause. But that's my opinion, and I would consider my opinion to be a professional opinion. I've been around this type of work for a long time, and that's what I would have done. The retaining wall situation, that is what should have been done. And again, these retaining wall blocks, they come in a variety of sizes, very, very large. I'm sure all of you have seen them before. They could have been brought in immediately, and this situation could have been taken care of. And this would have been a permanent structure, a well-working structure for this spillway wall. So now there's going to be more added stress with the incoming rain. As the lake reservoir level rises, more pressure is going to be placed on that wall. It eventually will start to spill over. And again, they do not know what the underlying erosion factors are. So after this retaining wall was placed into position with the proper drainage apparatus, even if there was a failure of that spillway wall, there would have been this secondary wall placed in the position, and it would have saved everything. It would have properly drained water coming over that wall. And again, with the polypropylene pipe, which comes in a variety of diameters, it is welded together with a plastic seal very quickly. Listen, I've run miles and miles of this pipe through the West Virginia and Pennsylvania mountainsides for these fracking wells. The welding machine is simply heating up two ends of the pipe, pressing them together with a machine, and there's a plastic weld. They work perfectly fine, even under high pressure. They bend, they're flexible, and this could have been done very, very quickly. I feel, once again, that the efforts being conducted at this spillway and this dam are just worthless. I hate to be so critical of their work, but after viewing this over the last couple of days, I think at this time they're wasting a ton of money. They're wasting a lot of time, and time is not on their side. It's just a matter of time with the weather conditions that are moving in right now and the future weather patterns. There are 2 more storms moving in to the Central California area and the Northern California area over the next 7 to 10 days. But that's my take on it. Once again, I hate to be so critical, but coming from an engineering feat and watching this work over the last couple of days, I just don't understand what they're exactly trying to do. Helicopters, bags of rocks, and concrete. It's just not It's not even a Band-Aid, folks. It's a waste of money, and they should have been working to shore up this wall and create a drainage system along with the repair. But we will keep an eye on this. I will definitely keep an eye on this. God bless anybody and everybody in this Oroville area, because if this goes down, your city's gone. This will probably reach all the way to Sacramento. The situation is bleak. Pray for everyone that is involved. And as soon as I get some more further information, a really good update on what's happening, we'll be back with you with that update. Thank you for watching the Nibiru channel.